Well then guys, as many of you pointed out regarding the video I did on the stabbing in Bournemouth, you are right, indeed the media were keeping the name on the down low because it was someone from the religion of peace. An enricher named Nassen Saadi from Croydon, London has been charged with attempted murder. Quite why he murdered this woman we don't quite know, whether it was Islamic radicalism or he was a bit nuts, it remains to be seen. And now we know if he was a white Englishman, this would be all over the news all the time, while every progressive voice calls you a racist for assuming it might not be a white Englishman. However, now it's not, they will bury the story as quickly as possible. I will now imagine that the mainstream media will go back to their traditional line of calling any indigenous European who's concerned about mass immigration an evil bigot, despite there being another attack in Europe recently. Just the other day we had a knife attack in Germany where an Islamic attacker was shot dead after attacking a police officer and a supposed far-right anti-Islam activist. Of course, as you can tell by the headline here, they're already throwing out far-right against this guy just simply because he had some concerns around Islam, and that's obviously meant to manipulate the viewer into thinking that the guy deserved it. And while the media constantly tell us how the indigenous Europeans are such terrible, evil people on the verge of terrorism and radicalism, it is Islam and Islamic attacks that just keep happening across the European continent. I mean, just imagine if we had this level of attacks the other way around from indigenous Europeans. The army would have been deployed at this point. And as per usual, we're supposed to totally ignore this and pretend we're the problem. And if it does ever get really bad and we have a mass terror attack, then we know what will happen. The leading politicians and cultural figures will come out and assure us that Islam is a religion of peace. And I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but whenever that occurs, the politicians, the leading Islamic figures, always come forward and repeat the same thing. It's from the Quran, Surah 532, and they often point out that it states that whoever takes a life, it will be as if they killed all of humanity. Now, as a Christian myself and someone whose life has been revolutionized by Christ, I thought what a lovely reading that is. That's very Christ-like. So I decided to do what most people don't do and look into it a bit more. And of course they're lying to you. If you read the Surah 532 in full, what it states is, "We ordained for the children of Israel that whoever takes a life, unless as a punishment for murder or mischief in the land, it will be as if they killed all of humanity." I.e., henceforth Muslims are taught by the Quran it's bad to kill anyone unless they've caused quote-unquote mischief in the land. Now, of course, you'll get thousands of Muslims apologists who will try and contextualize that into their own meaning of what that's pointing to, but all of that's irrelevant because it's down to the interpretation of the individual Muslim. Essentially, that means that many radical Muslims think they've got carte blanche to attack anybody who they feel is causing mischief. And as I've said on this channel before, this situation is made 10 times worse by the progressive ideologies that's forced on our population, as well as our new enrichers telling them that they're the eternal victim and we're awful, terrible oppressors throughout history who deserve everything we get. This leads to insane situations such as this, where a cultural enricher is yelling at the Irish people, the Irish, for being colonizers and ruining his land.
Why are you recording us? We are not criminal, we are just refugees. We need our country for a reason. We need our country because you f***ed it up. Shame on you, various migrants in the world. More than 2,000 million Irish around the world. You're fighting everything.
Of course, the Irish never had any colonies. In fact, they were part of the British colony. And even though I don't buy the argument that we deserve it for our colonial history either, at least there's some sort of argument there. Yet what this really is a sign that the woke progressive globalist ideology has been pushed all the way down to our enrichers, who now just see someone white in a European country and assume they are an evil colonialist, whether they are or they aren't. This is another reason why mass immigration is so risky. It's not just the sheer numbers, the erosion of our culture, losing our towns and the dangers it brings. It's the elite progressives have sneered at us from their ivory tower, convincing all of our new arrivals that they're virtuous and we're pure evil. And when the average citizen feels the consequences of this, we're told to sit down and shut up because we're an evil bigot who's not welcome in the country anymore. On top of that, if there's a terrorist attack, we're told that's just part and parcel of living in a big city these days. I personally just can't see how this situation isn't going to lead to some fracturing in the future. I'm sure the Guardianistas and the BBC will tell us that's all our fault, but the world they've created is getting worse and worse and more dangerous. Anyway, these are some of my thoughts. Do let me know what you think down below and do consider subscribing to the channel.